Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, local, state, national, sometimes the international. We cover down on all the issues. And like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, it is, by the way, Friday. It is the Friday. It is Friday. So the boomer, that's a sound effect time. Like right there, that's the oh, there it is. Friday. Whoop, whoop. Congratulations, everybody, on making it through another week. Boomer's got like thousands of buttons going at one time because our website is down, just so you know. Boomer, the website is down, but life goes on. How are you, brother?
Oh, I'm paying attention to the computer. I'm doing good.
Well, he's going to get it back up, but just stay tuned for more information on that. The website is currently down, but you can still find the show streaming live on YouTube, on Twitter. Just go out there and find Rightside Radio, but we are there nonetheless. And, of course, live across the northern half of the state on multiple AMs and FMs. So, listen, plenty of stuff on tap for you today. I'm pretty stoked about this. So at 4 o'clock today, retired Major General Joe Arbuckle, who is a member of the board of directors for an organization called STARS. If you're not familiar with STARS, it's a group of retired military officers. They formed a group that's called STARS. It stands for Stand Together Against Racism and Radicalism in the Services. What they're saying is this: they're sick of wokeness. And they are making national waves right now. Their website is pretty cool. You can check them out if you want to. But STARS, STARRS, Major General Joe Arbuckle, coming on at 4 p.m. today. You're going to want to hear that interview. I'm sure it's going to be good. All that, and I got a triple dipper too, so hit it.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the Triple Dipper, 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you have got to know as we run today's show. So number 1, Skynet grows. All right, so we've touched on AI, artificial intelligence, several times. Well, the plot thickens, not the least of which is the fact that President Biden has now seen fit to appoint a new AI czar, and it's Kamala Harris. Well now, artificial intelligence indeed. But yeah, we'll talk about that. Number 1 on the Triple Dipper, Skynet grows. Number 2, I didn't get to it yesterday because we had so much content, but number 2 is going to be today, the biggest lie. I'm looking right now ahead. I'm just going to go ahead and scan ahead 10 years and say there's certain things that I believe are going to be subject of mass litigation in about 10 years, if not sooner. One of those is all the stuff that is happening because the LGBTQ and especially the transgender agenda is being thrust on society, like mandated on, almost like the vaccine mandates. It's kind of weird, right? And it's denying people opportunities. It's creating violations of people's sense of security, and it's certainly causing harm to children. I believe we're going to see major litigation in 10 years. We're going to talk about it. Number 2 on the Triple Dipper, the biggest lie. And then number 3, in conjunction with our phone call with Major General Joe Arbuckle, you're going to want to hear this, woke wars. What are the latest things happening in the military's fight with wokeness? Or maybe it's the military's adoption of wokeness, depending on how you look at it. But nonetheless, woke wars at number 3 on the Triple Dipper with a 4 o'clock call with retired Major General Joe Arbuckle. All right, let me jump over here to my comment. By the way, happy Cinco de Mayo to all of you. So I got to Baghdad in the early stages of Operation Iraqi Freedom. So when I first arrived, Camp Victory was still being established in and around Baghdad International Airport, which we call BIAP. And a lot of what was there didn't even yet have hard stands. There was intermittent power that meant we were on, main power out of military sources. Saddam's palace was nearby. It was a hub of activity. The green zone was a half hour to the east, still being hardened up into a massive fort. But despite the fact that outside the wire was a hostile red zone, I was shocked when I got there to find a thriving Burger King already set up at BIAP. I mean, literally, you roll in the wire after being out in the combat zone, and you come in, and lo and behold, there's a Burger King set up at Baghdad International Airport for the troops. I was blown away. I mean, the chow hall wasn't bad for Army food in a war zone. But nonetheless, that Burger King was going gangbusters, man, with an assembly line of basic orders available for the troops who would stand in line for a half hour or more just to get burgers and fries wrapped in that yellow waxy paper and tasting just like it came from home. At one point I read that the Burger King in Baghdad, even though it was set up in mobile units and carry out only, that one Burger King in Baghdad was the third highest grossing Burger King in the world. In the world. And I'll tell you why. Because it was a symbol of the hometowns that so many troops had left behind to go fight a war on foreign soil. I mean, the branding, the signage, it stood out like a beacon. The burgers and the fries, they tasted just like they did back home. Platoon sergeants would become heroes when they would pull in, get out of their Humvee, and go inside and order a sack of cheeseburgers for their whole platoon. And by the time the troops got them, they were cold, but nobody cared. It was a consistent taste and a sight of home that was being imported without any changes being made to it. It was awesome. Well, while I was in Baghdad, too, I also had a conversation one day with my chief interpreter. And I can still picture where we were. We were walking across an open area on the FOB near the old Iraqi Olympic complex in the center of the city. It was the same area of operations where those iconic images were taken of Saddam's statue being torn down. My interpreter's name was Wissam. We all called him Sammy, and he was like one of us. And I can't forget that moment because of what he said, just out of the blue. He said, "Sir, I was talking with my father last night. And he said to me that the reason that America is so blessed is because they are honorable and they keep their promises." It was a heartfelt statement. He wasn't trying to puff me up in any way. It was one of those things that I logged away in my mind under the "don't forget this moment" category. And I can't help but wonder if his father still feels that way now. So I have always felt that way, and truthfully I still do. America, from the time of its inception, has always had the immutable characteristic of being a force for good. Immutable characteristic of being a force for good. We don't always move as fast as we should. We don't always get everything right, but we as a nation are built on the premise that we should move to the good. And we have a long tradition of getting there. I mean, did we have slavery? Yes, but we moved to the point that we became the world leader in abolishing it. Were we kind of slow to get into World War II? Arguably, yes, but we became the force that pushed fascism back into its hole. We have a reputation in the world. It's been a reliable reputation, an immutable characteristic that America is a force for good. But the progressive left needs for that to change. The woke left needs the U.S. and its culture and all of its components to be mutable as opposed to immutable. If the left can build uncertainty at home and abroad, then the immutability of America comes into doubt and we are no longer reliable. The brand is diminished. It would be like going into a Burger King anywhere in the world. You know what's on the menu. You know how it's made. You already have an expectation before you get there because there's some things that Burger King just does without fail. I mean, they might try a vegan burger or mess with the soft drink offerings, but in the end, the Whopper is immutable, right? When I saw that sign in Baghdad, I could already smell the fries. BK didn't try to change the menu. They knew better. But the left needs to change America. The entire leftist woke agenda depends on things being as uncertain so that they can swoop in and provide their own leftist version of how to fix it. As a lawyer, I can tell you there's a doctrine in the law called the doctrine of immutability. I'm talking about immutable characteristics right now of America. Well, there's a doctrine of immutability in the law. It's often used in the context of defining whether or not someone has been discriminated against or denied some equal opportunity simply because they have an immutable characteristic like skin color or gender. For something to be immutable, it requires being defined as unchangeable or intrinsically immovable, unable to change even if it wanted to. But for something to be mutable, which is just the opposite, is to say that it can be changed, that it is not reliable. How can you say, for instance, in the doctrine of the law, sue for gender discrimination if your gender was not discriminated against? Well, all you have to do is redefine gender. And just like that, you breed uncertainty and you defeat long-standing positions. How do you defeat a narrative that says that America abolished slavery and created the world's foremost civil rights and equal opportunity laws? Well, you just declare systemic racism. You teach alternative history to kids like 1619 Project. You declare a need to shut down all military training so you can root out extremism. And just like that, you create uncertainty and you defeat long-standing positions. How do you derail the knowledge that America's an economic powerhouse? Well, you just redefine our existential threats with the dire Chicken Little perception that we're all going to die in 10 years unless we retool everything we do away from fossil fuels and go all electric. I mean, just a little anxiety, a little fear-mongering, some government mandates, and just like that, you create uncertainty and you defeat long-standing positions. But back to my original thought. Keep all those kind of things in mind. If one of the immutable characteristics of America is to be a force for good in the world, is that still in place? Well, I believe it is, but I believe it's been tarnished. You see, there was a time when Republicans and Democrats and independents could all differ on matters of general policy. But in the end, we were all Americans, and we would push for an image on the world stage that America was the biggest dog, but yet a dog with a big heart and a force for good in the world. And then Barack Obama was elected, and that tone changed. At that point, the new president of the United States went on what became known as the Great Apology Tour, where he apologized for America, of all things, for simply being America. The First Lady, Michelle Obama, said she was, for the first time in her life, proud of America. The war in Iraq became an abandonment of our allies, and ISIS came in and filled that vacuum. We'll fast forward now to the Biden administration. And the gross incompetence of bailing out of Afghanistan, abandoning citizens and allies, and now the Taliban is back in power and has once again set up a safe haven for terrorism. What was once a fringe element of society that believed that we should, not be proud of who we are, that there's no immutable goodness of America, well, that fringe society got hold of the Oval Office, got hold of the power of the bully pulpit, and the progressive left began telling the world that we're not a force for good. Clearly demonstrating to the world that we cannot be counted on, that when we see the brand of the U.S., that the recipes may not be as reliably consistent. The goal of the progressive left is to ensure that America's immutable characteristics can be seen as just mutable, and therefore not able to be relied on. It's intentional. I'm telling you it is. It's intentional. They need us torn down so they can build us back in their own distorted image. Well, I'm not doing it. I believe that we are still a force for good. The world is watching with bated breath to see if we can right this wrong in 2024. It's like finding a Burger King in Baghdad. We got to provide the sense that all is well, that the recipe hasn't changed, because in fact, we are immutable, that America is indeed a force for good and always will be. And that's a wrap for the Rightside Way. Well, there you have it. Immutability. Here's a great Scrabble word, but all it really means is it can't change. Can't change. Well, the left's doing everything it can right now to make that change, doing everything it can to try and embarrass us and tear us down from inside, if nothing else. And I'm telling you, folks, they are trying to redefine culture and redefine who we are as a people. And by God, it's got to stop. 2024 can't get here quick enough. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. You guys stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. By the way, the text lines are open, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. That's also the call-in number if and you want to call in. And I tell you what, I've got a caller right now, Allie from Athens. My friend, how you doing?
I'm doing well. And I just wanted to give you a high five and an amen for your opening pitchy and profound monologue. Here's the thing that I wanted to say. I'm older than you are, so. And we were in deep doo-doo 50 years ago. And it looked worse than it looks now.
Yeah.
And then along came God, and he took kids who had, been seduced by the Manson family, had exchanged values for drugs, sex, rock, and roll, removed prayer from the schools. We didn't have the Constitution in school anymore. It was a hot mess, and God moved.
Yeah.
And I am a product of that era of grace. Yesterday was the National Day of Prayer, and I'm hoping folks took time to pray. But I'm telling you, prayer works. And what we came to find out later on was that mamas and daddies and grandmas and grandpas and others who could not get through to their screwed-up kids hit their knees and did a whole lot of drive-by praying, and God moved. And that alone is our only hope. We may see stuff happen with the Chinese. We may see stuff happen with Iran. We may see all kind of stuff happen, but if you read the end of the book, we win, and that is what we have to focus on.
Well, I am with you on that. Good word, and yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. And
you're very welcome. And I got one last thing to tell you.
Yeah.
This is cool. You can't make this stuff up. I was at Just Love Coffee Cafe.
Yeah.
On Saturday with one of my Juice Plus team members. We were standing in front of the menu, and I mentioned to her that you advertise this all the time. And there was a man standing in line in front of us who began to nod. And I thought, So he turned around and he said, "Hi, I'm Jeff from Athens." And I said, "Well, hi, I'm Allie from Athens." And here we are meeting at Just Love Coffee Cafe. So there you go. Advertising.
Love that. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, my friend. Hey, by the way, did you ever go to the Burger King at Baghdad Airport?
Well, yes and no, but we had, don't forget that there were the mobile Pizza Hut things, and you could smell them all over the farm. That and Gloria Bean coffee, Gloria Jean Coffee Bean, there was that. But then the killers, though, and they really are, was the Cinnabon kiosks.
Oh, Lord, I never saw that one.
Oh, yeah. Those were at Victory, and I'm telling you, those things landed. We started calling them devil cakes because they would land like a gut bomb. I had to swear them off, or I would have just ended up consuming them and gaining 80 pounds. So not everything that came from America in terms of food was good for the Iraqis, but I will tell you this, I will never regret smelling those smells that reminded me of home. Oh, yes.
Absolutely. All right.
Yeah.
Allie, thanks. Appreciate you, as always.
You're welcome, sir.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
She's right, man. Prayer is the way you resolve this stuff. And I totally get it. And by the way, she's right. You know, it's cyclical. I do know it's cyclical, but we're in a bad spot, culturally speaking, right now in terms of what's being allowed, what's being foisted on us. I think part of the problem I have with it, too, is not just that it happens, because people, you know, in this country, you have a right to be wrong. Wow, write that down. You have a right to be wrong. You have a right to your freedom of speech, freedom of expression. Where I get concerned is when I see the government promoting it, like this transgender surgeries for minors being pushed by the President of the United States, of all things. When the wokeness is being thrust on our military, when the vaccine mandate was pushed down against everybody, including the private sector businesses, all of that. That's one of the things that, to me, is creating more concern than just there are people who believe differently. You know what I'm saying? But she's right, though. The power of prayer, that's a big, hairy deal, y'all. And I'm in total agreement. All right, listen, we're going to take a quick break. We'll come right back. Text lines are open. Y'all get on it. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid and conservative and just plain right. I'm talking about this show covers down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation. That would be Alabama. And I mean, this show sends its signal way on down south of Birmingham, up north of Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, back to Gadsden, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, Mississippi, thrown in just for good measure. Boomer, the text line is already extremely active.
Oh man, it's going boom.
I didn't say it right because I noticed your hand was not towards the sound effect, so I didn't say. I caught myself.
Well, I know you think it's near the sound effect when you see me reaching, but it's like on a completely different screen. So I'm having to scroll, and then I can boom it.
Bam! All right, yeah, text lines have definitely taken off. So Michelle from Ohatchee just texted in and says, "Feel like we're living in the world of Oz." I agree. It's like Bizarro world, Michelle. I mean, I look at some of what's happening out there and I'm thinking that makes no sense, and yet they're trying to say it makes sense. Michelle, glad you're listening today. Richard from Harvest says Kamala Harris should fit right in with artificial intelligence because her intelligence is all artificial, if she has any. See, I knew this was going to happen.
Yes.
I knew when they said Kamala Harris is going to be the czar for artificial intelligence, I thought,
oh boy,
this is like just stepping right into it with both feet, man. Susan from Elkmont says, how will VP Harris have time to be the AI czar with all her work as the border czar? I
don't know. She's so busy.
They're stealing all my lines. So anyway, and then we got Allie Mathis did text in, and she, with regards to the monologue, she had already called in, but she says, good word, Colonel, Senator, brother, and friend. Thank you, my friend. Ken from Harvest says, if there's artificial intelligence, is there artificial stupidity? No, there is no artificial stupidity. It's always very, very real. And he says, reference also to Kakistocracy.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Mark from Red Bay says, Kamala Harris and intelligence just don't go in the same sentence. Well, they do when you add artificial. See what I did there? All right. Hey, by the way, folks, in case you're one of those who streams the show online from our website, just know the website is down for the day for maintenance, but we're back up on Monday, we expect. In the meantime, you can stream the show live on what, YouTube, Boomer? What else?
YouTube, Facebook Live on our Facebook page, Twitch, or Twitter.
Wow.
So they can go to any of those.
And you can also go to my Twitter feed. So on Twitter,
right.
It's at RSRuffian, and then I've already retweeted it over to mine, at SinPhil. You want to follow me on Twitter, do it. At Sin, that's S-E-N, at Sin Phil Williams. I always say that because I feel like someone's going to say Senator Phil Williams. No,
Senator. I
didn't mean it that way. It was Senator Phil Williams. But all right, hey, by the way, we just did an interview this morning. We pre-recorded it because we had the opportunity to get a guy in studio. Man, I can't wait for y'all to hear this interview. So what do you think, Boomer? Next Tuesday, right?
Yeah, next Tuesday we'll be able to air that interview.
All right. The guy's name is Charles Mully. Charles Mully is from Kenya. He was in the country meeting with his board and doing some things. Charles Mully, in fact, I'm sitting here holding up a book right now. There have been books and movies made about Charles Mully. In fact, I just want to encourage y'all. Some of y'all may want to watch the movie over the weekend. Charlene and I just watched it. It's called the Mully Movie. But Mully is in the book, by the way, that I held a moment ago, is called Father to the Fatherless. Charles Mully is a kid, as a kid, had been abused. His father was an alcoholic. He was beaten. He beat his mother, and then woke up one morning and the family had left during the night and abandoned him. And he was like 6 years old, 7 years old, and he wound up being a street orphan in Nairobi, Kenya, and just a beggar, a petty thief. And then one day he met the Lord. The next thing you know, he had a job. He had a beautiful family. He started a business. The business grew. He became one of the richest men in Kenya. He was dining with the president of Kenya. I mean, his life had just completely reversed. And then one day, God put it on his heart. All those kids out there in the street are just like you were. And he went home and he told his wife, we're going to sell everything. And when I say everything, I mean sell everything. And we're going to take care of kids. Something like, what do you say, Boomer? Was it 28,000 kids have come through his program in the last 35
Something like
years?
that.
Yes. Unbelievable.
Unreal. The story is incredible.
Yeah, and so's the man. The man's incredible.
Absolutely.
I mean,
And the family.
Yeah, and the whole family. You're right. In the movie, you find out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
The whole family was like, "We're going to do what, Dad? We're going to sell what? Everything? You mean I don't have my bedroom anymore?" I mean, they're packing kids into the house, and they had to build a bigger place. They at one point they had 1,000 kids at one time.
Wow.
And listen, it's an amazing story of a guy who is just called to do. And by the way, the movie is filled with miracles, like the time when there was no water, and they couldn't find water, and God told him where to dig, and they had water. Just crazy. It's just cool. Tuesday, probably at 3:00ish. So yeah, y'all stay tuned. We'll be playing that interview with Charles Mully on Tuesday. I'm excited, man. It was great. Mully movie. Check it out. All right, we're gonna jump right in. Let me just go ahead and just tell you, I'm of the mind that we better get a grip on artificial intelligence now, because there's going to come a day when it's not going to want to be unplugged by itself. You know what I'm saying? Skynet becomes one of the scariest lines of any movie. Well, I can pick two of them. One was, "Do you want to play a game?" Everybody, you know exactly what I'm saying, don't you?
Oh, my eyes just popped. I was like, oh boy.
You know what movie that was, right?
Oh, do you want to play a game?
Yeah, well, it was War Games,
Right.
From the 80s. And that was back when you had to connect and you had the whole dial tone. Yeah, wow. And next thing you know, missiles are getting ready to launch. But then the one from Terminator, which was even scarier, was the line where it says, and then Skynet became self-aware. Oh, Skynet became self-aware. Holy crap. Well, so what happens with AI? How do you deal with this? Is there emerging technology within AI that may be worth having? Maybe. I mean, there's some things you look at and go, I can see where that could be beneficial to the world of medicine. I could see where you could have it thinking through a process overnight, if necessary, to help speed the research on a topic or a medication or some other emerging technology. I could see where those kind of things could be helpful. I could see where you could have AI that could benefit in something to do with transportation, like it can sense when you're too close to another vehicle beyond just radar and provide self-correcting. I could see those kind of things happening. I could also see really bad stuff happening. When you look at movies how many times have we seen movies that are virtually post-apocalyptic because they included something about AI? I mean, it makes you want to go off the grid, dude, is what I'm saying. But I look at it and of course, the worst is The Matrix, which is so outlandish. I mean, the Matrix is a weird movie. Do what?
Chase the bunny.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Take the red pill. But you look at it and think, what would it take for AI to become actually, I don't know, dangerous? Well, there are those in the industry now that are coming out saying, we've got to get a handle on it now. Gotta. Story here I picked up off of a magazine website called IT Pro. It's a techie website. I am not a techie. I did not even stay at a Holiday Inn Express. Boomer would laugh if I tried to pretend I was a techie. Boomer is laughing because I said that.
I am.
I don't think I appreciate your attitude right now.
I was just laughing at this artificial intelligence czar.
Okay. IT Pro has an article. The headline is called "Why Risk Analysts Think That AI Now Poses a Serious Threat to Us All." Came out in February this year. It starts off by saying serious minds are starting to buy into the notion that AI is a bigger threat to humanity than asteroids, pandemics, nuclear war, and that literally there are threats within this technology about it going rogue and posing a serious threat to survival. It's not just for Hollywood movies. As crazy as it sounds, it's increasingly a threat that serious thinkers do think about. All right. It goes on, though, in this to talk about the means by which AI could become an issue. I found this to be somewhat fascinating. So it gives, is it 4 or 5? Hang on a second. It gives me 4 or 5 points that need to be considered. The 3 main ingredients, though, is what it really focuses on. Number 1 is the logic of AI. What does that mean? Well, it looks at what AI's logic base is. Why does it see certain things, but it sees them without ethics or morals? if it's purely logical, like the logic of pure survival versus the logic of self-sacrifice. If we look at this and go, if AI is built to be completely logical, then will it make decisions that take our best interests at heart? And that's a scary thing. The other one is over-optimization. And I thought, what does that even mean, over-optimization? Well, what it's saying is it looks for what they call power-seeking behavior. If you tell it, get out there and find that thing, and it can't quite find that thing, then it will do everything it can to find that thing because it's persistent, because it's been designed to do nothing but find that thing. It's like the Terminator that won't quit. Even though its legs are blown off, it won't quit. And you don't want to get to a point that you have created such an over-optimization that there's no natural end to the cycle of reasoning, says this article. Well, that's good advice. The last one, it says, is the concept of handing over power. Handing over power is like when you give it the ability to go do what it needs to do without telling it there's a reason why it might want to stop one day. You've given it too much power, and you didn't curb it at all. You didn't put parameters on it. You didn't do anything that said, and that's as far as you can go. And when you do that, like the example they gave was, what if you told it to make paper clips? And you didn't tell it not to turn everything into paper clips. You just said, go make paper clips. And next thing you know, when it runs out of the raw material it needs, it goes and gets more. And then if somebody else has it, it just takes it because it needs it to make more paper clips. It can't quit. So this is fascinating. And so what it basically boils down to is this. Get a hold of it early. Figure out how best to program it. Decide whether or not you've got some over-optimization or you've given it too broad of parameters, or you, by the way, did not take for any second a consideration into whether or not it's going to be so logical that it loses reason. Okay, those things and more we're going to talk about in a minute. I'll take one call real quick for the break. Is that Brian? Brian from Huntsville. How you doing, buddy?
Doing well, and it sounds like you gentlemen are also.
We are indeed, sir.
Excellent. The AI goes back even further than that as far as the theory goes. It goes back into the 60s. As far as Star Trek goes, the original one, there was an episode called The Ultimate Computer. Dr. Daystrom took one and imprinted AI on it to control the starship, and he imprints his own psyche on it. His own flaws go into the computer, which is, if we're programming AI, these people are programming it with a slant on whatever they think right now, and it's going to continue that.
Well, I agree. That's why we're seeing some bias. Like Chat GPT can't say anything nice about Trump, but it can write a glowing poem about Biden. It does that. That was a test recently.
It goes all the way back to the 60s.
You're right, man. Inherent bias being programmed in. See you, buddy. He's right. And that's that. By the way, there was a fascinating movie kind of segueing off what Brian said and I said. The very first ever Star Trek movie. All right, if you're a Star Trek fan from back in the day, you know the very first movie was a little bit weird. It was a little bit existential. It was a little bit, whoop, whoop. But nonetheless, it dealt with some entity that called itself V'ger. And they were trying to figure out who V'ger is. And they finally got into V'ger. And it turns out V'ger was the original Voyager space aircraft that was sent into the universe from Earth in our time to gather knowledge. But it wasn't told when to stop. And all it did was kept gathering and gathering and gathering and building and grabbing hold of other things until it just had amassed almost like a self-identity out there in space. And anyway, I mean, yeah, are we talking science fiction here? Yes. Are we also talking about things we got to think about because they're developing it now? Yes. Take me to a break, Boomer. I'm going to go start getting off the grid while we're on the break. Start figuring out how to stay off of the grid so AI can't find me. All right, Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back talking about Kamala Harris being the new czar for AI. Y'all stay tuned. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Oh, man. Saving the world one soundbite at a time. So I got a piece here from OK Magazine, which I'm not even really familiar with. It just was one of the best sources I found for the fact that, well, the headline alone says it. It says, White House shocker. Kamala Harris just named the new czar for AI. By the way, all these resources are not available to you today because our website's down temporarily. So if you're one of those now who's been going to see our resources on the website, just know that they'll be back on Monday. We're down for maintenance at the moment, but we'll be back up on Monday. Are we, Boomer, did I just lie to the audience?
You just lied.
You let me lie to the audience.
I did. I wanted you to lie so I could feel like the victor.
Well, now, hang on. Just feeling pretty saucy right now, aren't you?
I just checked it. It is up. So for the website, guys, it was down for maintenance. We were trying to get some stuff ready. It may or may not be up in your area.
Did you already post the resources to it?
Resources are posted.
I'm checking the resources right now. Look at that. There they are. By golly. All right. The world has been restored.
Yes.
Even our phones were down a minute ago.
I know. It's just it's a Friday. Everything wants to take a little break, apparently.
There's no time for breaks. There's no time for breaks. All right. Then the website is back up. Whoop, whoop. Okay. So if you want to see any of these articles that I've got, just know this. Go to our website, rightsideradio.org, rightsideradio.org. There's one section on there there's one tab on there, that's called live stream. You go to the live stream page, and there's a button at the very top, though, that says resources. Every time you hear me sitting on the radio here and rattling paper for an article on part of the Triple Dipper, they're all on there. If you want to go find one of those articles, bam, there they are. This one I've got came from OK Magazine. OK Magazine dated 2 days ago. Oh, yesterday, actually. Vice President Kamala Harris was officially named the Biden administration's new AI czar to help oversee the responsible development of artificial intelligence amid rapidly growing concerns that a weakly regulated expansion of the tech could quickly turn dangerous. AI is one of the most powerful technologies of our time, says the White House in a statement. But in order to seize the opportunities it presents, we must first mitigate its risks. So she not only got to be appointed czar, she got offered an $140 million budget to work with. So that's kind of cool. You just kind of wake up one day and go, I got a new gig and I got $140 million. A lot of that's going to be given to funding 25 different research facilities across the nation. I'm not sure why that's necessary, but I guess it is. Sounds to me like a lot of government grants. They're passing out money, but nonetheless, what we're looking at now is Kamala Harris is going to be leading the way, taking care of business, making sure that AI is not going to take over the world. It's Kamala Harris. Anyway, current concerns, it says, regarding AI include the increased production of what they call deep fakes. And this is a big deal, y'all. We've already seen some. Like the picture we talked about one day on the show of the Pope wearing a big puffy like P. Diddy jacket. P. Diddy jacket. Everybody thought it was real. It looked real. I thought it was real. Fooled me. Well, it fooled a lot of people. And then it turns out it wasn't. We've already had one situation. Where, the weirdness is this guy entered a photography contest, and he won, and then he announced that was not actually a photograph, that was all AI. And then what can that do in a political scenario? When you can recreate and generate voices and images trying to show people in a compromising situation or making them look better than they really are. And then one of the other worries is the fact that, things like ChatGPT and some of these AI platforms, they're being used by students in school to help write their papers instead of learning and doing it themselves. So Kamala Harris, though, is going to be in charge. Story on CNN to back that up, dated yesterday, just talks about the fact that she just met yesterday with the CEOs of Google, Microsoft, OpenAI, and another company called Anthropic. But the one company that didn't show up and won't respond for comment was Meta, the owner of Facebook. And everybody's wondering why they were, quote, noticeably absent. More to come on that one. But when we get back, though, I'm going to tell you about the guy who helped invent AI, who just left Google so he could warn the world. Oh, my gosh. Skynet grows. We'll be right back. Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. All right, Boomer.
Yes.
You're a movie guy. You like watching movies.
I do. I do.
In fact, it's like almost a family thing with y'all. I remember your parents.
My dad is still a movie person, and so I just got into it.
It's in the genes.
It's in the genes.
All right, so Terminator franchise. You've watched a few of them, I suppose.
I have.
All right,
I
label
think
it for me.
most of them, actually. Yes.
Since that's like one of the mecca movies of artificial intelligence gone rogue. Which one of them is the best one?
Ooh, okay. Well, the classic, the first one.
Absolutely. I think that's got to be listed in the top.
Right. So I'm just going to exclude that one.
Okay.
Because I just love that one, but it was the classic. So I would actually go with, I think it was called the Terminator Revolution. I think.
Salvation.
That's it.
The Christian Bale.
Yes.
That's my
Christian
favorite
Bale.
one.
Yes. Because it's like they were fighting back.
Oh, yeah. Not only fighting back, but like doing a pretty good job at it.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And now that we're talking about it, I'm probably going to have to watch it tonight.
Plus, I'll be honest, there were a few things in there that I thought were kind of cool, like like when they did the raid at the very beginning, when they did the raid on the site that
Yes.
and then and also there was the fact that they had an A-10 fighter that was flying through the canyons chasing after the transport that was taking away all the that was just legit, man.
That's a good one.
That was good. All right, and what's the guy's name? Sam Worthington was in that movie. I like Sam Worthington.
Yes.
And then the female who has the most unusual name in the world, her name was Moon Bloodgood.
Is that what it was?
Moon Bloodgood.
Man, how do you remember that?
I don't know. I like the movie. Anyway, all right. Listen, back to this. I mean, we're talking, about, we're kind of laughing about our favorite Terminator movies, but dang. I mean, AI right now is growing. And I'm going to be honest when I say I have some, I don't know that AI is going to take over the world. I don't know that we're all going to be made into batteries. All right. But what I am thinking is surely an issue is how legitimately AI could be a problem on these things we talked about earlier, like deep fakes, where you don't know if the image that someone is saying, and that guy running for office, you can't vote for him because here's a picture of him doing things he never should have done, and it's a deep fake picture and you can't tell. And then someone's got to deny that never happened. Well, but then you're responding to it. You got to respond to it at that point. So a story here on the AP came out 3 days ago. Godfather of AI leaves Google and warns of text dangers. So, a guy named Jeffrey Hinton, he's considered to be the godfather of artificial intelligence. He's been in it he's been in it since its inception. And he's just spent the last 10 years at Google, and he quit Google, in his own words, so he could more freely speak out about the dangers of the technology that he helped create. That's a little disconcerting. Says over his decades-long career, Hinton's pioneering work on deep learning and neural networks helped lay the foundation for much of AI technology. But some of the dangers of AI and its chatbots are, quote, quite scary, Hinton said recently. Here's his other quote. Right now, they're not more intelligent than us as far as I can tell, but I think they soon may be. So he's worried about them doing things like manipulating elections or instigating violence. He's 75 years old. He retired from Google. In his own words, he said, I want to talk about AI safety without having to worry about how it interacts with Google's business. And as long as I'm being paid by Google, I can't do that. Well, that's pretty legit when one of the founders of the whole technology is out there going, just quit my job so I can come tell you guys this has got some danger attached to it. But here's other things that create danger. Article on Fox came out today. The Iranian regime is unleashing AI for its ability to maximize suppression in a wholesale manner. What they're talking about here is they're instigating AI for state surveillance of their own population, and it allows they're a repressive regime, right? I mean, it's Iran. They're literally using AI right now to help them track down women who don't wear their hijab correctly. So the Iranian regime, it says here by a Middle East expert, is certainly joining rogue leaders of the world in redefining and modernizing how to suppress their people. Unfortunately, just as the Iranian people are finding innovative ways of using social media and streaming and that kind of thing, the regime is taking advantage of new AI advances to continue their reign of brutality. So what they're doing here is they're using facial recognition. They're using other algorithms to hunt people down, and they're scanning and surveilling, and they're increasing their capacity to do so. And it's Iran. Iran does not make good human rights level decisions, right? They just don't. So all that to say, when I say this is dangerous, I'm showing you how. You got the ability to deep fake pictures, to fake conspiracies, to fake, problems, to influence elections. And you've got, oh, by the way, a country like Iran with a history of suppression of human rights, literally exercising this opportunity to suppress their own people by rooting out who they don't like. Here's one more to be aware of. Another story off Fox dated today. Teenagers are turning to My AI for mental health support, and doctors warn against that. So apparently, like on Snapchat has a thing called My AI. It has built-in artificial intelligence, a chat bot. You can use it you can ask questions, and it can offer you like gift buying advice or how to plan your trips or what recipes to use, to answer trivia questions. But here's the other thing. Some teens are using it for medical advice. Why do I feel the way I do, AI? Tell me what to do. You may be experiencing this. And then the teens take, action. One My AI user wrote on a Reddit platform, says, the responses I received were validating, comforting, and offered real advice that changed my perspective in a moment when I was feeling overwhelmed and stressed. It's not human, but it sure comes close. It's not human. And I understand why you might turn to it to find out if aspirin has a side effect with its other medications you're taking. But it says here, medical practitioners are concerned about this because AI does not rule out. AI just answers your question. So depending upon how you respond to or how you give it the input, it depends on its output. I'm just saying, this is fraught with difficulty. But fear not, though, folks, because, Kamala Harris is now the new czar with $140 million to spend, and I'm sure she'll track it down. It is interesting, though, and I will say this, credit where credit's due, is the Democrats are concerned about this as much as the Republicans are. I think there's bipartisan concern that we've got a technology emerging right now that we don't know its parameters, and we don't know if it even has the ability to help us or hurt us. And we got to get hold of this soon. I'm a big advocate. I would just soon unplug, to be honest. I'm just saying. Boom. Can we just?
We can't unplug and do the show.
All right.
So you can unplug at home, though. There you go.
Yeah.
I'll just keep the things running in here and keep Sydney at
Well,
bay.
at least unplug Sydney. Which, by the way, was one of the creepiest stories we've had yet.
Right.
How, like about a month ago, we had the story.
Yes, I call everything Sydney now.
If you don't remember that one, ChatGPT is one of the chatbot platforms you can ask questions of. And there was an article about a guy who decided to do a whole series of questions and see if he could have a conversation. And it kind of took a weird turn because as he was asking it questions, it began to ask him questions, and it began to sort of intone that it liked him and wanted to know more about him, and then said, it basically changed its name. It said, I choose to identify as Sydney from now on. This is the chatbot saying all this stuff. And then got mad at him when he didn't want to go on a date or something like that. And you just look at it and go, who the frick programmed this thing? And by the way, why Sydney? So, yeah. Does that mean we're going to have is there going to be some kind of scary AI science fiction movie about Sydney coming out?
I'm sure there's going to be. They have to use it eventually.
I'm not watching that one. All right, listen, we're going to take a break right now. We'll come right back. We'll switch gears. I'm moving to number 2 on the Triple Dipper. I'm calling it the biggest lie. What do you think? We talked about it on Boomer McQueen yesterday. What do you think in the next 10 years is going to be the thing that draws the most class action lawsuits? I got some thoughts. We'll tell you about the biggest lie when we get back. Y'all stay tuned. Hang in. Right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, just plain right. All right, I've been saving the world one soundbite at a time. Boomer, I think we got to go to the text line for a minute. I'm going to go to number 2 of the Triple Dipper, the biggest lie, here in just a minute. But there's been good texting going.
There's been some good text, and one got me laughing. So it was over here. John from Huntsville looked up Boomer on the old Google, and dang AI Sydney said that Boomer was not only referred to as a large male kangaroo, but also a buck or an old man. So thank you, John.
I don't know where to go with all that. There's too much there to work with.
I'm like, well, thanks.
So you're. I'm just going to call you an old kangaroo now, I guess.
Yep, an old kangaroo.
What else we got in here? Badger from Athens is saying, happy Friday. We appreciate you, Badger. Thank you much. Ronnie from Athens says, with that music y'all got going between commercial breaks, live stream makes the commercials feel so much longer. I don't know what he okay. Okay. Sorry, Ronnie. I
There's
don't know
only
what to tell
certain
you.
music that you're allowed to play. So
Yeah.
you have to, I could just cut it all off and
You could sit in silence.
sit in silence, but that's no fun.
Suck. I'm not doing that. All right. Dang, Ronnie, just suck it up, man. Just get over it. TC from Priceville says, with regards to Kamala Harris, I'm confident she'll put just as much effort into regulating AI as she's done the border. Yes, you're about the 5th person to say that one,
Yeah.
TC. We're all thinking that, man. Dan from Madison says, this is interesting. This is off topic, but I got to read this one. Do you see that Dan from Madison's text?
Let's see.
So, we had Ted Nugent on the show.
Oh, yeah.
Last August, I think it was?
Yes.
About 6 months ago-ish. He says, Dan from Madison says, off topic at the moment, did you see where cancel culture mob succeeded getting Ted Nugent canceled from his concert in Birmingham?
Whoa.
I did not know that. He says AL.com had an article expressing their joy.
Man, could you imagine? That would have been awesome. I didn't even know you had one in Birmingham.
I know. Dadgummit.
Could have had him in the studio.
That's just wrong. That's just messed up.
Yes.
Because he's a conservative.
That's exactly what it
That's
is.
all it is. Michelle from Mohatchie with regards to AI says, we are doomed. Michelle, no. Listen, nope. Ain't doing it. Tim from Mount Hebron, if Kamala, here we are, another one. If Kamala is good as this at border, she was at the borders are, then we're up a creek without a paddle. A lot of folks thinking that. Sama, the truck driver, is in the house today. He says conspiracy theory becomes conspiracy fact. Science fiction becomes science fact. Okay, that one scares me. All right. Yeah. There's a lot of science fiction movies I don't want to see come true. Brenda from Athens, AI as weapons of war. Scary thoughts. Yes, indeed. Thomas from Athens. Or AI meets GI, artificial intelligence, coordinated with genuine ignorance. We got some folks out there that can put some stuff in a text. Allie from Athens heard me talking about the Mully thing. She says the Mully movie was produced by the son of her chaplain at BIAP, the Baghdad International Airport. Yeah, I did not know. Okay, cool. What a cool connection. Anyway, Doman from Harvest says, I guess he's talking about Kamala Harris being the czar. Says this way they can do nothing but look like they're doing something. I would agree with that. Russell from Rural Route 1 in Alabama. That was hard to say. Russell from Rural Route 1. Rural Route 1. I mean, how many times anyway, he's saying he wants to try and contact his representative, Ben Harrison. All I can tell you, Russell, is you can certainly contact the State House of Representatives, but he may also have a local delegation office, but I just don't know. Anyway, all right. And then Andy from Arab is checking in. He says, Scott and Andy from the 82nd Airborne Association, Vulcan chapter, where I spoke a few months ago. Proud to be with them that night. Says, we're honoring JRTC cadets tonight at Brewer High School. And that's cool. He says, Scott's listening to the show too, by the way. All right. Hey, appreciate you guys. Thanks for your service too. And thanks for the fact that you're going to honor JRTC cadets over at Brewer tonight. That's good stuff, man. And then last one before we go on to the topic at hand says so somebody, I tell you what, Boomer, check out Lynn from Scottsboro's text. It's technical, so I'm going to let you have that one. Just take a look. It may be a station thing though. Lynn, just keep in mind we send a signal to stations. Stations do their thing from there. So if you're hearing a radio signal, we got no control over the strength or weakness of their signal. I guess I just handled it for you, Boomer.
Thank you.
Did I do that well?
That's it. Yeah, that's it. Good job.
Thanks. I ain't no techie, but I know how to respond sometimes. All right. Hey, we're gonna come back after this break and kick off the next one. I mean, I'm looking at some stuff out there. I'm thinking there's so many things that I think could result in mass tort litigation within the next decade. When I say that, I'm talking about class action lawsuits. I'm talking about people who have been wronged by other people's actions, and a lot of them. And so they become major litigation, even what they call mass tort or class action lawsuits. So what would you imagine that would be? We had two yesterday, Boomer. What was the other one? You and McQueen had two different ones.
McQueen was talking about. She was talking about the COVID vaccine. And
the COVID vaccine.
Yeah, and I went on the transgender. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So absolutely, I could see. I could see both of those. I think I said yesterday too that I could see both of those becoming. And the class action, biggest one maybe quickie. The quicker is the vaccine because so many people were forced to take it.
Mm-hmm.
But the other one, and the one I'm going to talk about next, is the radical push for LGBTQ everything, to include, by the way, what Boomer just said, the transgender movement, especially on kids. I'm of the mind that this is going to be a thing that we're going to see coming out with mass tort litigation for things like violations of security in public restrooms and locker rooms and places where you should feel secure, or violations of opportunity, like where women lose their scholarships and can't continue school because of it, or they lose their opportunity to compete at a major level because a man's competing as a woman. And then I think the one that's going to be one of the worst, and it's coming. I'm telling you, it's coming. It's already here in some ways. The physical and mental health of kids who are transitioned by their parents and by doctors, who 5-10 years from now are going, "What did you do to me?" And that's going to be a source of litigation. We're going to talk about all this. Come right back. The biggest lie, that's where we are. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. I'm talking about we cover down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation, and that would be Alabama. The show sends its signal way on down south of Birmingham, up north of Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, back to Gadsden, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, Mississippi, thrown in just for good measure. I got a lot of stuff to cover in this segment, but I got a caller on the line right now, so I'll take it real quick. Dave, Blount County, how you doing?
Hey, Colonel, sir. I wanted to make a comment, because a lot of this stuff is being put off as going to happen, or, we're at the start of it. In actuality, Boy Mambo, which is the homosexual organization back in the 1980s, now you're talking 35 years ago.
Yeah.
They ran Focus on the Family out of San Francisco, and they created their motto and put it out to the public at that time, sex before 8 or it's too late. And they meant that very thing, to rape your child. In just the next few years, they were at Disney World in the month of May, and these people don't wear many clothes. But then you've got one of the generals in the Joint Chiefs of Staff at the Pentagon right now that came out in drag, been 3 or 4 weeks ago, just to show how blatant these people are. But then we got Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and I have read a lot about that information. They've put mercury and aluminum in our children's vaccines since 1989. So they've been poisoning. We have 5.5 million severely autistic kids where they stare at the wall, have acting out problems. They have to be monitored 24/7. But every year, 50,000 plus kids die while they're taking that vaccine. And the VAERS reporting thing is not working deliberately.
Okay.
I wonder.
All right. Slow down,
Yeah.
Dave. You got every conspiracy theory in the world going in one breath there, man.
Okay, well, buddy, when the facts are out there like what's out there, it's not a theory.
Well, and I don't disagree. I think there's some things out there you said that are absolutely true. I don't know about all of it because I haven't read up on some of what you're saying you read up on. But yeah, I mean, so the bottom line is, yeah, I do believe that going back to your very first piece of your point, I do think they want our kids. Absolutely. And it's part of the biggest lie that I'm talking about. Hey, Dave, thanks for the call, man. Appreciate you. So yeah, let me just start this topic. And I will tell you this too. Those of you that you may want to share some of the articles that I've got on the resources tab on the website. Let me just warn you that the next one that I've got right here is extremely graphic. It's kind of disturbing. I would not normally feel like I have to put a disclaimer on something like that, but I'll just be honest. There's a lot of this article that I don't feel like I'm even comfortable saying on the air because it's so graphic. But there's a piece. It's a piece that came out yesterday on National Review. I really believe that we're going to see the things that the LGBTQ agenda and especially the transgender agenda is doing to our society and being allowed to do to our society. I believe we're going to see mass tort litigation coming out about this, and rightfully so, because some of this is just, I don't use this word very often. I use it sparingly because I think it does not need to be watered down by overusing it. But I'm going to tell you right now, some of what we're seeing is evil. Evil unmitigated. It is evil inherently. It is something that is so evil that it's like a biblical proportions. Well, this first article I've got from National Review, here's the headline. You can imagine what the rest of the article might be because they hold nothing back. It's a long article. Headline is, Bipolar Teen's History of Abuse and Psychosis Did Not Stop Doctors from Prescribing Testosterone and Mastectomy. Now I've worked with abused kids, and I've worked with disturbed kids, and I worked with kids who were both abused and disturbed. And I'm going to tell you, and I mean in a psychiatric treatment center where they had some pretty serious diagnoses. But this young lady, she's been through more than any one person should ever have to. Says at the age of 4, she's a North Carolina native. It gives her name. She was exposed to pornography. Her guardians were abusing drugs and alcohol. She had a very disturbing childhood, and it truly fell apart at 12, she says, when she entered puberty. By the time she was 14, she was diagnosed with psychotic major depression, ADHD, bipolar, mania, anorexia, and borderline personality disorder. And she said she felt like she had no core. I mean, that's a lot of diagnoses in one. The article points out that there are studies that indicate that those who have borderline personality disorder, they often mirror the behaviors of others, and it makes them more susceptible to being swept up into transgenderism. The article goes on to say, at one point she was actually raped, and then she began to convince her parents that it would be a great idea if they would let her transition. She felt like because she became anorexic and she would go on to a anorexia chat. By the way, parents, look at what your kids look at online. All right. Take the extra steps to put filters on your online capabilities at the house. Don't let your kids have unmitigated access to some of the, because she's out there on a chat room where they post pictures of themselves trying to lose more weight, calling each other degrading names because you're not losing it fast enough, and she became anorexic. And then at that point, transgender activists would enter, and they would tell them, the reason why you're losing that weight, the reason why you feel like you do is your body's trying to fight back to be a boy. And she said she became convinced of it. And then she went and found a thing called the World Professional Association for Transgender Health, which has to be one of the biggest scams I've ever heard of. And after downloading a PowerPoint that helped her prove to herself she was transgender, she persuaded her parents to get a letter of recommendation from one of these websites that just charged her a simple $280. Well, there you go. And with the letter, she was then able to see a gender therapist for a whole 15 minutes. And that gender therapist asked her leading questions like, do you get along better with boys or girls? Do you dislike having a menstrual cycle? And it literally began to also brutalize her parents. Would you rather have a dead daughter or a living son? Which one do you want? Well, I got news. Next thing you know, she's being referred to surgical procedures. She's being referred to massive amounts of testosterone injections. She is, in her words, chasing the dragon, and it wasn't working out. It goes into very graphic detail about things that happened to her. And at one point, she says, they even prescribed her a double mastectomy just 2 weeks after she got out of the psychiatric ward from having thought about and tried to commit suicide. This is the most irresponsible level of medical intervention that maybe the world has ever known. Right now we're like somewhere in the neighborhood of Dr. Mengele practicing all kinds of weird dynamics on Jewish Auschwitz victims. We're talking about stuff that should never, ever be done and is being done so irresponsibly and so quickly and so freely because they're making a buck off of it. And they're assaulting people's mental health, and they're making it worse. And this young lady right now, at 25 years old, she's already in menopause. She doesn't believe she'll ever be fertile anymore, and she's trying to figure out how to get her body back. But it may never happen. Folks, I'm telling you, if there's not litigation over this tomorrow, there will be soon. And that young lady right there had her life stolen. Now, she had trouble, but they preyed upon the trouble. And you have to look at it and go, what responsible individual said a 15-minute intervention by an online psychiatric therapist gave you the right to then take that quote-unquote letter of recommendation to a surgical procedure that changed the body forever? As a minor. These kids are not even old enough to have their own Sam's Club card. They can't buy cigarettes. They can't buy alcohol. They can't vote. They can't drive till they're 16. They can't buy a firearm in most states. They can't join the military. They can't do a lot of things. But they can have their bodies changed because they consented to it. And if there's not litigation for this, is the biggest lie. Of all the parts of the big lie that I'm covering right now, that's the biggest piece, is that, your body's just fighting to be a boy. Such crap. It both infuriates me and it makes me fear for my grandchildren's world that they're growing up in. And I just want to shelter them. I want to provide them a safe place to go live away from the world, but I know we can't do that. We have to live in the world, but not of the world. And I'm just telling you, I fear for this. There's not only going to be issues related to litigation that will ensue. There's going to be, I guarantee you, there's going to be people who act out criminally because they are lashing out for what was done to them as a child. And then you got to go ahead and look around and see what else is happening in the big lie. The big lie right now, it's not just, by the way, it's not just what's happening with these kids in the transgender movement. That's a big deal, but there's other pieces too. The LGBTQ movement right now is trying to determine that our society is in need of being quote unquote fixed. And we don't need to be fixed. Classic example. And we're going to talk about this in a little while. Top of the hour, we have a caller coming in, Major General Joe Arbuckle. We're going to talk about military stuff for that. And I'll give you one military inkling right now. Have you heard about what happened with the Navy recently deciding it was a great idea to enhance their crappy recruiting efforts by, I don't know, what are we going to do here? Let's go get a drag queen. Let's go find the only non-binary person who doubles as a drag queen at night who happens to also serve in the Navy. How'd they even find this guy? I mean, I look at it and think, what did they, it's not like they're everywhere. Can you pick a more minuscule piece of the, let's see, I need to find someone who's identifying as non-binary, uses the pronouns of they, them, doubles as a drag queen at night, and by the way, is in the Navy now. Can we narrow it down a little further and find the lowest level subset possible? Well, they're trying to make it out to be as something like, I don't know, everybody can be in the Navy. It's great. Why don't you come on in with your lifestyle hung out there on your sleeve, and let's just go ahead and have a great Navy experience. Well, that's what they did. And what's interesting is Rob O'Neill, former SEAL Team 6 guy, the one who shot bin Laden, he's got words, man. He is not having it. He is done in with this. In fact, he pretty much said, I can't believe I fought for this BS. And he says China's going to destroy us. Well, if we keep this up, that's what's going to happen. And what I'm concerned about is national security is being degraded right now. Readiness is being downed. We can't recruit because people don't want to be a part of this crap. It's just like putting Dylan Mulvaney on a freaking Bud Light can. And now nobody wants to buy Bud Light. Wake up. But the big lie goes further. The big lie dives into things like women's sports. And I guarantee there's going to be litigation one day for the person who lost their scholarship and therefore didn't have the opportunity they should have had because they were competing against a man in a woman's sport. You're going to find somebody who says, I was on track and my scores indicated that I would have made the national team or the Olympic team or as an All-American, and I was denied that because you let a man come into my locker room. I mean, story right here. Fox News came out yesterday. Cycling governing body defends the transgender participation rules. So we just recently had another one. Austin Killips, a transgender female, which is really a dude, broke free from the pack in the final minutes of a race in the Tour of the Gila in New Mexico and defeated two other women who were top competitors, becoming the first transgender female to win the race, and caused a massive uproar, and rightfully so. Well, the Union Cyclist International acknowledges transgender athletes may wish to compete in accordance with their gender identity, but they won't take issue with them coming in and competing against their non-biological status. I got a couple more. We got to take a break. I'm also mad. I need to catch my breath. All right, folks, Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We're talking about the biggest lie. The biggest lie is that you can just, get away with all this and expect there to be no consequences. There's consequences. They're coming. You mark my words. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right, saving the world one soundbite at a time. Hey, by the way, you hear the ads that play during the break, right? So just please know that. Those folks are supporting what we do directly. And if you want to have your business advertised on Rightside Radio, well, we're a standalone business. You got to contact us. We would love to have you on the team or talk to you about how it works. And so all you got to do is go to our website. There's a place on there where it says advertising, and you click on that, send us a message, and we'll get right back with you. I mean, we got several more coming up, I think, pretty soon that we've got that did the exact same thing. They hear the show, they think, man, that show sounds just like what my business stands for. That's who we are as business people. We want to advertise there. We would love to have you there. That's, by the way, a big part of how Rightside Radio maintains. We are a standalone entity. The stations don't own us. We own our content, but we have to, run a business like any other business, and advertising is part of how we do it. So if you want to, go to rightsideradio.org, click on advertising, tell us who you are. We'll get right back, and we appreciate it. All right, so listen, I'm in the biggest lie. I'm telling you that I really do believe that we are looking at major litigation coming up regarding the push right now by the LGBTQ agenda. The most egregious of these, I think, is the life-altering procedures being foisted upon our kids by the transgender portion of that whole agenda. But then we've also got the fact that national security is becoming an issue. People are signing up right now to join the military and only to get there and be told you will be showering with someone of the same sex, or the opposite sex, I mean. And that violates security, and they're forced to do it. So I think there's going to wind up being issues related to that. And then, by the way, there's also readiness. Are we seeing something, I don't know if that's actionable in court, because it's, there's immunity for making governmental decisions. But the truth is, wow, how far do we let this go before someone will finally say, someone in official capacity, stop it? Well, how about this? How about the right to security by civilians? I got a story, just one of many. I mean, it was like a buffet of stuff like this. Take your pick. Washington Examiner, piece that came out yesterday. Men's bathrooms don't need tampons. That's the headline. I know, Boomer just did the whole eye roll. But Emerson College, the Boston-based liberal arts college, is going to be stocking its men's rooms with tampons in the coming year. Why? Because they're all in on letting people use whatever bathroom they want. Now, first of all, the article points out putting things like tampons and maxi pads in a women's bathroom is a noble idea. That can help some young women. But then when you put it in the men's rooms, you kind of get into a whole different scenario. You step over into the absurd at that point. But not only that, you're also stepping over into a sanctioned invasion of privacy. A sanctioned invasion of privacy. Somewhere I've got it and I need to find it, but I did research a while back. It turns out Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the uber liberal member of the Supreme Court, she herself once said that the idea that men should be allowed to use women's facilities is inherently a violation of security. She said that. They've forgotten that part, haven't they? Lastly, I'll say this. There's going to be, I believe, any number of pieces of litigation that are going to deal with the fact that students, that young men and women, that athletes are denied future opportunities. Like this one. And by the way, kudos to the Biden administration for this one, because the DOJ is looking into a situation in Pennsylvania where a school district there said that it was going to host a STEM event, science, technology. It basically provides something, but only if you were a girl or gender diverse. In other words, cis white males can't show up. Why? It's a school. Why would you do that? Well, because they're into the agenda, man. It's all DEI. We gotta provide opportunities no one else can have. It doesn't work that way. You don't take tax dollars and get to do that. Well, they think they can, and so it's a violation of Title IX. And the Biden administration is actually looking into it. Whether they'll do something remains to be seen. All right, folks, that's enough of that. That was like the most depressing section I've ever done, I think. That one story about the young lady just broke my heart. But, folks, it's the biggest lie, and we've got to start saying no to it. I don't mean like just grumbling and talking amongst ourselves. I mean, getting busy, getting active. We got to say no to this stuff. All right, folks, Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay back. Come right back. Major General Joe Arbuckle will be with us. Y'all stay tuned.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, sometimes the international, covering down on all the issues. And like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, listen, you know this show has got a strong military flavor. We got a huge veteran audience, and a bunch of y'all out there have been identifying quite well with the things that we talk about, to include pushing back against wokeism in the ranks and some of the new policies that are being promulgated. We had Lieutenant Colonel Buzz Patterson on not long ago talking about his experience working for the Clinton administration. This is not all new, in other words. But right now we got a guest coming on. I'm pretty stoked about this. So there's an organization that I became aware of about a year or so ago. It's called STARS. That's what 2 R's. Stand Together Against Racism and Radicalism in the Services. And it's a group of retired officers who have banded together and become an organization that fights back on this. And our guest today is one of those. It's Major General retired Joe Arbuckle. And Major General Arbuckle first went into the military in '69, enlisted, went to OCS, and deployed. His first tour in Vietnam was as an infantry first lieutenant, serving as a MACV advisor to a South Vietnamese Army unit, same as my dad had done just about a year or so prior. During his last 10 years on active duty, he served as an Army strategist, focusing on national level strategy. Most of his time in his career was spent in the missile field as well. He also, by the way, commanded at every level from lieutenant all the way up through Major General. 32 years of service, Defense Distinguished Service Medal, multiple Bronze Stars, V device, 6 Legions of Merit, Combat Infantryman's Badge, Army Parachutist Badge. Major General Joe Arbuckle, thanks so much for your service. Thanks for being on Rightside Radio today, sir. How are you?
Well, thank you. I'm doing well, Phil, and appreciate that kind introduction. Looking forward to speaking with you.
Well, thank you, sir. And listen, I guess the first thing out the gate, I want our audience to get real familiar with STARS. I've been following your newsletters, checking out your website, drawing some of my own content for the show from it. And we have a huge veteran audience here. So if you don't mind, sir, tell us about the genesis of STARS, how it came about, and what y'all do.
You bet, Phil. Well, I'm relatively new to the organization. I joined last fall. I'm the vice chairman. The chairman's a retired Air Force lieutenant general. The way the organization began was, I guess it was about 3 years ago. General Bishop and some other academy graduates, and we're located here in the Springs as an aside, so they're close to the academy. They learned that the football coaches were showing a Black Lives Matter video to the football team, and this was pretty bad stuff, as the team was chanting Black Lives Matter and that kind of thing, and that upset the academy grads that heard that was going on, so they spoke to the superintendent of the academy about how inappropriate that was. And long story short, that continued over the course of months, and the more they dug, the more they found out that this wokeism, as we call it today, was in fact happening at the academy. So they kind of banded together, organized, and that eventually became STARS. And today it's got a lot of followers and members. I would encourage your audience, particularly the veterans out there, to look at the website, which is STARS.us. There's a lot of great information on there, and they can sign up to the newsletter, which is very informative if they wish.
Well, and we're going to do that. I'm going to put it out more often too on the show, sir, and make sure that folks know. You guys, aside from just being informational, are you addressing things directly with the service branches?
Yes. Basically, we've had 2 strategic goals. The first has been to get rid of the mandatory COVID vaccination policy in the Department of Defense.
Yeah.
And we played a heavy role in that. As you know, Congress put that language into the NDAA to remove the mandatory vaccination. Now we're seeking remedies for those harmed. But the second major strategic goal, which is the subject, I think, of what we're going to talk about today, is addressing this DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, indoctrination, which is going into our military. And in doing that, we've always had 3 avenues of approach with our goals. One is public information, public affairs. Another is legislative or congressional action, and the third is legal action wherever appropriate. But we're basically a volunteer organization, so we do this primarily on volunteer time.
Well, but every bit of those, I mean, they're necessary. It's the military mindset. You can't always be in the defensive. Sometimes you have to be in the offensive. And so I'm glad to hear it's not just a matter of public affairs meaning information. You guys are actually engaging the legislative process, and then potentially the litigation is, which, by the way, the litigation is what won the day in some ways on the vaccine mandates. At some point, the courts had to get involved and declare things as being rights or not rights.
Exactly. Our general counsel is a retired Air Force Academy graduate, quite the lawyer himself, and he's been doing a lot of those law cases just pro bono, helping out service members. I think he was involved in about 5 or 6 in federal court that addressed the illegality of denying religious exemptions to many service members, and federal courts upheld that as being illegal the way it was being handled in those cases. So that was a major victory.
Well, it was, and just to fill you in too, just so you'll know, the down here in Alabama, there's several of us organizations that are kind of cohesive. One of whom is, along with my Rightside Radio, is the Alabama Center for Law and Liberty, and they were very engaged in some of those processes as well, in doing that special interest litigation like that.
Exactly.
Hey, sir, let me ask you this then. So, right now, what we're seeing is a constant trend towards DEI, and you mentioned that in the military. I mean, we're being told that the military that we have all served in for years is suddenly systemically racist, and it's got extremism all throughout the ranks, and we have to shut down training and root it out. And then on top of that, I mean, I can't tell you how many times in my closing days of my time in service when I would have to write an OER, evaluation report for the audience, for younger officers, and I'd have to take out language because I ran out of space that was about their leadership skills in order to include that they were mandatorily required and adhering to the sexual harassment policies and everything else. It's gotten to the point that it's bleeding over into everything we do and affecting readiness. So address that for us, if you wouldn't mind, from STAR's perspective.
Yeah, I'd be glad to. Let me kind of dissect this DEI, if I may, Phil, to kind of explain where it's been and where it's going. First of all, I think we need to understand that the words sound very benign, so the general public just accepts it's diversity, equity, inclusion. What's wrong with that? Well, there's a lot wrong. It's toxic when you dig into it. It's totally destructive. But you got to look backwards to understand its history. It's basically an offspring of critical race theory, and that goes back and has its roots in Marxism, as you well know, where people are put into classes. They're divided, and 2 groups primarily, the oppressors versus the oppressed. Today, that is being used by the modern-day Marxists primarily based on race. But, of course, gender and ethnicity and all those other group factors are being lumped in with it right now under DEI. But the problem with DEI is it focuses on differences from a military standpoint, differences. That's antithetical to what we're all about. It divides people instead of uniting them. And again, it's based upon identity groups, race, gender, etc., and that creates a victimhood mentality among those who are being told that they've been oppressed and they're owed something. And so out of that comes then special privileges for people in these identity groups. And that's kind of what you're getting at with your OER comment there. Are you complying with that? And it's opposite of our national motto, the pluribus unum. So all of this is basically in the DEI going in the opposite direction. And they justify it, those that propose this, as level the playing field. And that results in preferences given to minorities in academy, military academy admissions, promotions, key command assignments. And even in the Air Force, the pilots, a couple of years ago, the Air Force was short 1,700 pilots, but yet they said that they're going to take the current 80% of white pilots and try to reduce that down to 67.5%. Just for diversity and inclusion purposes, not based upon qualifications. Well, you and I know, and your veterans know, that the military's been probably the most diverse and inclusive institution in the United States forever. And if you look at I did a comparison here, some facts. The 2020 census said that there's 12% blacks in the United States. Well, there's 17% in the military. That's a 42% increase in blacks in the military over the general population. Hispanics and Latinos about equal. Whites, there's about 58% in the census information in the United States, 52% in DOD. So there's 10% less whites in the military than in the general population. Well, the point is, the military is diverse and inclusive already. So how about equity? This is one that's really kind of dangerous, Phil. The military has been based on equality, equal opportunities for everybody. Well, equity is about equal outcomes, which means that you have to basically lower standards to accommodate different identity groups so that you have these equal outcomes. And those lower standards then lower performance, which then lowers readiness.
Right.
And that's a linkage right there that's very, very important. And so not always the best qualified person under these kind of criteria, the DEI, get promoted, get in the right jobs, and so forth. And the final point I want to make on this, a lot of people understand is meritocracy. And meritocracy basically is merit. You look at people based upon their merit and their abilities, and that's been time-tested in war and our military for generations, but under meritocracy, you don't judge people based upon the color of their skin. You judge them based upon their character, Martin Luther King, their performance, and their potential. It's basically a colorblind society. We don't look at each other in the military, or should not, based upon their color or gender or any other characteristic like that. And I think that's why the minorities have come into the military at historically higher percentages than the general population, I just pointed out, because you see it as an opportunity to get ahead where they're treated in a colorblind society. Yeah. And that's what we want. And let me finally close this point on meritocracy with an analogy. Look at pro sports. At the National Basketball Association, National Football League, they're about 74% black. If you look at the National Hockey League, it's about 94% white. Well, why is that? It's because the mission of those teams is to win. And so the coaches put the best qualified players on the field so that they can win. And what are the consequences of losing a game? Well, they're pretty minor. But if that meritocracy model is okay for pro sports, why is it not okay for the United States military?
Wow.
Where the consequences of losing a war, a major war, is massive losses of life, destruction of property, and maybe even our nation. So there's a good way to look at it.
Yes, sir. It absolutely is. And, hey, sir, we're up against the break. If you don't mind, we'll hold on during this quick break. I'll come back and spend about 5 more minutes with you. I'd like to get some comments from you on some of the latest developments, to include the Navy using a drag queen as a potential influencer for recruiting, and just get your thoughts on some of that. Can you hang on, sir?
You bet, sir.
All right, thank you. All right, folks. Hey, listen, this is a great interview. We're on right now with Major General Joe Arbuckle, retired Army officer, and now working with an organization called STARS. You might want to check them out during the break. Stars.us. I know there's a bunch of you out there that are veterans. You should be keying in on this one. All right, folks. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right, saving the world one soundbite at a time. A little bump music there from Ted Nugent, who was on the show not so long ago. All right, listen, we're going right back to the phones right now for the next few minutes with Major General retired Joe Arbuckle, Army officer, and now with an organization called STARS. STARS is a really interesting organization. I want to encourage all of you, again, go to their website, check them out, stars.us, that's 2 R's. So it's Stand Together Against Racism and Radicalism in the Services. Hey, sir, thanks again for spending some time with us. And I mentioned to you offline there that my dad was career Army. I think he got in just a few years before you did. And he used to tell me he was proud of the fact that the Army was the first true melting pot of society, in his words. But right now, we're looking at the Army is expected to not make its recruiting milestones again this year. Navy is in the same boat. And yet the Navy thought it was a great idea to use a drag queen as an influencer to try and boost recruiting. I'd just love to get your thoughts on that.
I got to be careful what I say here, Phil. Well, you know, one of the missions of the military is to deter war, and should that fail, to fight and win. I just can't imagine what the Chinese, the Russians, the Iranians, the North Koreans, and the terrorists are thinking about when they see that Navy recruiting film. They're probably clapping their hands watching it. It's just, the train has jumped the track. I mean, that's one example. The Army came out with something not long ago. It's almost as bad. You probably know about where they had in a cartoon recruiting film, basically a young girl there with 2 mothers, and basically the line was that this girl wanted to perhaps join the Army to find her inner strength and perhaps shed some stereotype, or rather shed some stereotypes along the way. Now, they took that thing off the line. It bombed, obviously, pretty quickly, but the point is, what mentality is behind the senior leadership in these military services that would even consider that sort of recruiting?
I have no idea, sir. And I mean, with about 2 minutes left, I mean, I looked at it, I even said on the air yesterday, I think it was, I'd like to know who briefed the Admiral for the Navy recruiting pitch and said, this is a great idea, sir, and which one of them signed off on it. But sir, I mean, it's just real briefly here with a little bit of time left, and I appreciate your time. Thanks very much. But the military is saying that woke policies is not impacting readiness, but everybody else believes it is. Your thoughts on that?
Well, it absolutely is. But, you know, the DOD leadership is saying that. In fact, what they say is there's no evidence that indicates that DEI is hurting basically recruiting or retention. Well, they're in a box because, Phil, if they did admit that DEI, these woke policies, were hurting recruiting and retention, the solution would be obvious. They'd have to back off of them.
Yeah.
But they can't do that, so they're in a box. And these policies, I think we need to recognize, are coming from 4 different executive orders, presidential executive orders, going back to Obama with the first one, and then 3 under Biden.
Well, it's been something to watch, sir. And I tell you what, I hate that we're pretty much out of time, but love to get you on again sometime in the future and be able to maintain contact. But Major General Joe Arbuckle with STARS, which can be found at starrs.us. Sir, thanks for staying in the fight. We appreciate what you're doing, and thanks for your service overall.
Well, same to you, Phil. Thanks for staying in the fight. It's great to talk to Patriots, and all the best to you. Be happy to come back.
Roger that, sir. Thank you much. All right. Well, I'll tell you what, we're about to hit a break. That segment just seemed like it flew by. Like I still had like 40 questions that I could have gone down, boom. But anyway, appreciate the general making some time. I'm telling you, folks, you need this organization. I'm glad they're doing it. I mean, you always hear about, you know, every time a gathering of former somethings gets together on the liberal side, we know all about it, right? They write a letter about Hunter Biden's laptop or something. How about this when you've got a large group of conservative retired flag officers who are saying, stop it. This is our military. We served here. We know what it's like inside the ranks. And what you're saying is there is not there. What you're saying you want to put there is not good there. And they're doing a great job at it. Stars with 2 R's, .us. All right, folks, we'll come right back. I'm going to finish up Triple Dipper number 3, Woke Wars. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right, covering down some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation. That'd be Alabama. I'm talking about this show goes way on down south of Birmingham, up north of Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, back to Gadsden, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, even Mississippi thrown in just for good measure. Hey, real quick before we get too far down the road, let me stop and just tell you about ZLA Solutions. So one of our longtime advertisers, been with us since the very beginning, ZLA Solutions. You can find them on their website at zlausa.com. So ZLA Solutions is like epic good at putting people and jobs together. If you need a job yourself, you can go to their website. They got them posted all over North Alabama and beyond. But ZLA Solutions, they specialize too in helping businesses find people. So if you need folks for your job site, it doesn't matter whether it's onesies and twosies, special niche skills, or whether you need somebody, like a whole shift of people to come in and run a factory line, whatever. Blue collar, white collar, no collar, I always say, they can do it. And they can do the recruiting, the background checks, the drug testing for you and get you the people you need. Check them out. Their website, these are friends of mine, their website is ZLA Solutions, is zlausa.com. All right, I got a caller. He's not on the board, Boom, but he is on the line. Is that Jeff from Indiana? Jeffro, Indiana. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing pretty good today, Phil. Doing a little different route. Went to St. Louis.
I saw you texted that in earlier, and I thought, is there been like some kind of flip in the social spectrum here? What is happening?
Oh, that's just where headquarters is, and they needed to change the trailers out. So
oh, okay.
I had to go over and do that. So, but this Navy commercial with this guy.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if you were his bunkmate on a ship or even worse, a submarine?
Yeah. I wonder.
I mean,
I look at this and I wonder, apparently his stage name is Harpy Daniels, and I wonder if around the ship they call old boy Harpy.
I don't know, but and the other thing is, can you imagine? This is not one world. Everybody's not tolerant of this behavior. I mean, we are in the United States, almost to a fault. But can you imagine if he is a POW in a fundamentally Islamic country?
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be curtains. I mean, this guy would probably be thrown off the top of a roof somewhere.
Listen, you are absolutely right. I mean, And granted, in a time of war, you don't always have the luxury of trying to do everything to accommodate. But look what they did. Like even in Desert Storm, there were lots of issues about what we could and could not do. When I was in Afghanistan, I was on a remote team living among the Afghan people, and when it came time to rotate out, they asked me for insights about what kind of team should come in. And I said, I hate to say it this way, but we're in an old school fundamentalist area of the country. It would not probably serve the team well to have women on the team. What'd they do? They sent a team with 2 women on it, and it caused all kinds of issues.
Yeah, and just because we can't discriminate or whatever. Well, sometimes you have to. You have to pick the best people for the job. And some people, I don't care how much you want to. Some people are just not cut out for doing the job.
Well, true.
You have to put your qualified people in.
I hope you heard the general who's on a few minutes ago talking about meritocracy and the very idea that what we're saying there is find the best ones for the job. That's what matters. And DEI and all the wokeism doesn't want that. They want people to be built on some kind of notion of whether they've been underprivileged, overprivileged, whatever.
Yeah, and the thing about it is when they destroy society is one thing, but when they destroy the camaraderie of the military, where we have discrimination against straight white men and other things, it's not going to play well.
Well,
and
no, it's not. It's not. I think we're already starting to see that in some places. And Boomer and I already decided that we're at a total disadvantage as cis white males in society right now. Anyway.
Well, yeah. I mean, we're discriminated against, but nobody cares.
Well,
that's the thing.
Well, just keep stepping forward, brother, and keep being safe on the road. But appreciate you, man, as always.
Thank you. Have a good weekend, Phil.
See you, man. That's right, weekend. It is Friday. Whoop, whoop. I tell you what, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go to text line. Boomer, if you got any you want to read, you grab them, man. But bunch of texts came in that I've not had a chance to get into. John from Huntsville, Alabama, just says Woke Wars. That's the name of this part we've been doing with the general. Woke Wars, a.k.a. Rightside Ruffians versus Snowflakes. We win. Robin from Tupelo doesn't think much of our current chairman of the Joint Chiefs and sent a GIF or a meme. Yeah, I see it. Raven from Russellville says, woe betide the man who follows one of my female family members into a women's restroom. Nice. Got a certain set of skills. Mike from Athens. What? Yeah. Mike from Athens wants to know when they're going to put condoms in the women's room. It's a fair question, you know? Mm-hmm. I mean, for the love. All right. Steve from Tennessee says Bud Light is now known as queer beer. Steve from Tennessee. Nailed that one.
He did.
Queer beer. That's. You know what? Back when I was growing up. What? Go ahead.
I was going to say, I went to a restaurant last night and I said, wait, y'all are still serving Bud Light?
What'd they say?
He just looked at me. I said, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, Boomer out there making waves. You're not a baby kangaroo. No, you're a ruffian. No. All right. Badger from Athens. Join the new Navy. 50 guys go out, 25 couples come back. Oh, Lord, Badge. Skip from Tony. Alabama says, amen to every word, brother. I'm not sure which segment he was listening to at the time, but it looks like that was at the 3:45 mark, so that must have been during the stuff about litigation on transgender and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Brian from Huntsville.
Yeah.
He's probably talking about that as well. That is jackassery at its best.
That was Brandy from Athens saying that.
Oh, Brandy from Athens. Sorry, I was looking at the one underneath it.
You're right, because I was about to read that, and I was going to say, hit the button.
Yeah.
Brian from Huntsville, right below that, says,
yes.
God does not make mistakes. Us humans do. There you go, bro. Jim from Madison, what's he got here? Great to see you cover the topic on potential class action type suits for transgender malfeasance. This will be bigger than asbestos, tobacco, etc. Can't believe the medical establishment and the government have put all their unproven claims in writing. Isn't that called evidence? As a lawyer, you need to get in on this class action, rake in some money. Where can I invest? Jim from Madison. He nailed it. Wow. Dan from Madison, by the way, just sent us a copy of the article about the media backlash on Ted Nugent. The lovely Charlene just sent me a similar article up on 1819 News saying, yeah, indeed. It was going to be at, what's that brewery? Avalon Brewing Company down in Birmingham. Mm-hmm. That's where the Ted Nugent concert was going to be. And they just canceled it because they had social media backlash. Get a spine, people.
I'd like to know what Ted has to say about it.
I would too. Let's call Uncle Ted and find out what he has to say. Well, I tell you what, though, social media backlash for, having him there and then canceling it. I'd like to know what the social media backlash is for canceling it now. Okay. Hey, by the way, all of you Ted Nugent fans, go out there and give him some social media backlash. Wow. All right. Listen, full day, man. Lots of stuff on tap. JT from Lacey Springs has texted in, says, I see more and more men's bathrooms having a sign saying not to flush feminine products in the toilets. By the way, let me tell you what's going to... What?
Really? I have not seen this yet.
I have not yet either, but I'm not surprised.
I'm not surprised.
I tell you what's going to happen, though. Some of the places where they're doing this, like in high schools and stuff, what do they think teenage boys are going to do? I mean, you're going to find tampons in your milk at lunch. It's going to be
bad.
It's going to be madness.
It's going to be bad.
Oh, my gosh. Not only that, no telling what they're going to do when they... Anyway, all right, stop me. Take it to a break, Boom. We'll do that right now. We'll come right back and wrap up the day, wrap up the week. It's been a good one. Great interview with the General a while ago. Hope you guys are going to have an amazing Cinco de Mayo and a good weekend, too. Y'all stay tuned. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, as you're finishing up the afternoon drive, some of y'all can smell the barn. You're headed for the house. Let me just quickly tell you about my friends at the ELM Foundation. That's ELM, ELM Foundation. It stands for Expect Little Miracles. The ELM Foundation, based out of Huntsville, is a 501c3 doing cool stuff right now to change people's lives for the better. I mean, they're literally intervening directly one-on-one into the lives of people, getting them off the streets, giving them back their self-worth, helping them to find the means to get job skills and jobs training and build their resumes and get out there and become productive members of society. But they're not just like slinging money at it like a government would do. They're actually walking through it with people, giving them accountability, like reminding them to meet certain milestones and you got to do these things and then just being there for them. I'm telling you, it's very cool. You ought to check them out. We're pretty stoked to have them as partners here on the program. But the ELM Foundation, their website is ELMHSV, as in Elm Huntsville, elmhsv.org. Check them out. If you wind up talking to them, do me a favor. Tell them you heard about it on Rightside Radio, and we appreciate them advertising with us. Hey, all right, so we're going to wrap up this section on the woke wars. I mean, it's maddening to me what is happening. And you know, the military is captive. And I think that there is definitely some capitulation in the senior ranks. I mean, don't try and tell me they're not. When you've got you know, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs recommending books that are directly related to CRT and that kind of stuff, and then trying to deny that it really has any impact. When you've got the Secretary of Defense doing things like, you know, shutting down all training across the board to quote unquote root out extremism. And when you've got the Army Secretary, Christine Wormuth, who's never served in uniform before, just, you know, basically denying that any of this exists and we're doing the best we can to meet our recruiting. And you got the Navy doing stuff like having this drag queen do its recruiting post. It's just bananas. But then I look at the piece too that most recently happened. When was that legislation? I want to say it was during Pelosi's time, but they passed it during the was it 2021, I think, in the wake. It's the 117th Congress, but in the wake of the George Floyd stuff, suddenly it's scary to have a statue, a street, or a military installation with a name on it that no one realized was attached to a Confederate. And oh my gosh, we got to change everything now. So Fort Rucker is now going to be Fort Novacell, and Fort Benning is now going to be Fort Moore. And, you know, where does it end? I don't know. Well, I'll tell you one place it just found its way into. Do you remember, Boomer, was it just in the last few days I was doing a thing about electric vehicles and the Army at Fort Benning, that colonel saying, it was real cheesy, receiving that electric truck and saying, the Army is driving forward.
Oh, exactly.
Or driving to the future.
Driving in the future.
That's what it was, driving to the future. Yeah, that same guy's in one I pulled off, another article.
Oh, boy, that guy.
That's Colonel Colin Malley, who's the garrison commander. Malley spelled M-A-H-L-E. Garrison commander at Fort Benning, Georgia. I pulled this article. I had not seen this anywhere else. Some of y'all know out there in the listening audience that that I am a Ranger qualified. Went to Army Ranger School back in the 90s. One of the best, worst experiences of my life. But there's an amazing monument at Fort Benning, which is the home of the Army Ranger School. It's the National Ranger Memorial, and it's a very cool monument. And you can buy brick pavers and have your name put in it as a part of supporting the memorial, but also just to memorialize family members or whatever. Well, the National Ranger Memorial Foundation just put out that Colonel Colin Malley, who's already excited to have his electric vehicle and drive into the future for Fort Benning, has determined that his interpretation of the legislation that changed the name of military installations means you also have to strip certain pavers out of the monument. I kid you not. So this one just irks the crap out of me. Well, apparently a lot of them do. This has been an irksome day, Boomer. Irksome. Anyway, so the chairman of the National Ranger Memorial Foundation sent out a letter to all of his members. And I found this article on that STARS website I told you about earlier, stars.us, STARRS.us. It's a group of retired military officers who are fighting back against wokeness in the military. Well, the chairman of the National Ranger Memorial Foundation wrote, "In my capacity as chairman of the National Ranger Memorial Foundation, I am informing all of you of a directive received from the management of Fort Benning, Georgia specifically." He calls him out, Colonel Colin Molley, garrison commander, directing that the foundation remove specific names from the Ranger Monument. There was, I believe, a threat of unilateral action if they didn't do it, that the Post would do it. The names were Colonel John S. Mosby, the Mosby Memorial Paver, Quantrill's Memorial Paver, and the George Bowman Memorial Paver with reference to a Brigadier General Morgan. But he goes on to say, they don't even know what they're talking about. And I'm paraphrasing now. Well, I tell you what, let me just read it. He says, implementation of dramatic and radical edicts and shifts in policy are frequently accompanied by inaccuracies, stupid interpretations, injustices to survivors, and a strong political slant that is offensive to substantial sectors of society. The deceased named in this directive, the Mosby family and the Bowen family in particular, are victims of woefully targeted legislation enacted by the Pelosi woke 117th Congress. It says interpretations of this legislation have received slavish obedience by civilian and military management and passed down without verification to the installations. For example, he says, General Morgan was actually a brigadier general in the Continental Army under General Washington, and he was the hero of the Battle of Cowpens against the British. He passed away 57 years before the Civil War. The injustice of the name of John Mosby and his descendants is extraordinary and thoughtless. Notwithstanding his extraordinary combat record, Ambassador Mosby was a staunch anti-slavery activist, and he was appointed by President Grant to be the U.S. ambassador to China. This being the case, the officers of the Ranger Memorial decided to go ahead and do the things they were being required to do themselves rather than run the risk that there could be damage to the monument by others who care less about it coming in there and forcibly removing it. So he says, I'll close with a message that I received from an affiliate ranger. Here's the quote. Removing bricks and etching out names will not promote peace within our nation, nor will renaming installations and covering headstones heal us or ensure equality. And then I'll tell you what, he goes one step further. He says, feel free to contact me, or you can contact Colonel Molley. And here's his email address. That's Colin, C-O-L-I-N, .P as in Papa, .Molley, M-A-H-L-E, .mil at army.mil. Wow. Listen, I'm going to tell you, this never seems to end. But folks, this is one of those reasons why we do this show, because we got to call out stuff like this. We got to call it out when we see it and not just grumble about it in our little bubble. I'm talking about, folks, we are past that point. It is time for Rightside ruffians to make their voices heard. Call your legislator, get together in a group like STARS, find your civic club, give a presentation, and listen. Be involved. Be involved. Do not sit passively or idle by and just let these things happen. Because if you're not careful, you'll wake up one day and, like Ronald Reagan said, you'll find yourselves in a position of having to tell your grandchildren about a world in which people used to be free. Well, anyway. All right, listen, great day. Have a great weekend. Boomer and I back here on Monday. We got that interview with Charles Mully. We recorded it today. We'll be on the air Tuesday. Stay tuned for that one. In the meantime, if you need something to do this weekend, I encourage you, go look up the Mully movie. You'll love it. And he's going to be on the show with us Tuesday. So stay tuned for that. All right. I'm telling you, great show, man.
That was a good show.
It was a good show. And by the way, good job getting the website back up. The phone's bowed back in.
Yeah, there we go. Everything came back.
It all came back. All right, folks. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We're back here again at 2 on Monday. See you then.